Welcome, everyone. This is a special episode with a special guest today. We will be talking with Jon Flynn. Jon Flynn is currently a leader of AI go to market at Google. Before that, he was at Microsoft. He was one of my colleagues, my Jamie's colleague as well. Both of us work together. He is phenomenal and he has done a lot of work. He's a thought leader, he's a pioneer. His journey is inspiring, and the way he actually talks about AI in different industries, the media and the sports and everything. We are so excited to have this conversation. Stay tuned for a quick introduction. Greetings. Welcome to the AI Files podcast. If you're looking to stay up to date on the AI, this is the podcast for you. I'm Shadab Hussain. I'm the director of AI at Microsoft, and I'm your co-host.
Hello, everybody. Jamie Basilko, as you know already. I'm the other co-host here for the AI Files. My day job is a data and AI technical specialist and architect. And as a reminder, please note this is not an official Microsoft channel, so the views and opinions expressed by myself and Shadab are our own and do not represent the views of Microsoft.
Jon, welcome.
Thank you so much, Shadab. It's great to see you again, my friend. It's been too long.
It's been a privilege to actually have you there. By the way, for all our audience, just to let you know, when we started this podcast, I took actually a lot of guidance from Jon, because Jon is a podcast master by himself. He actually had number of podcasts. I don't know how many of that Jon have started in the last 1 year, but you actually guided us, and based on that, we got set up with this AI files.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad that I provided a little bit of inspiration to you as well. But I've watched every episode. I listened to every episode as well. So keep doing what you're doing. You and Jamie are doing absolutely wonderful things here. And I love the very topics that you have on. So thank you to you both for having me on. I feel honored and privileged here. And hopefully we can get into some of these, some of the conversation that we're having and just have some fun. Right?
Fantastic. So, Jon, let's start in the past, right? Because I want to actually understand how a 10-year-old Jon Flynn, how he dreamed about his life, what he thought of, what was his goals, and what he wanted to do in the life, and where he is today. What has been that journey like, right?
Okay, so 10-year-old me. All right, so I can tell you right now, my life looks a lot different than it does today than I thought it was gonna look like when I was 10 years old. I had one goal in mind, one, and that was it. It was very simple. I wanted to be a professional rugby player. That was it. I lived, eat, slept, breathed rugby. Then, when you look like me, you don't really become anything except a professional rugby fan instead of a rugby player, right? I wasn't built for it, but one of the things that I remembered growing up is that rugby was such a unifying event. It was an experience. It wasn't just a game that you went out and you played with 15, 14 of your other mates and that was that. It was like getting up in the morning and going somewhere and you meet a bunch of people that you know and they bring people you don't know, so you get to involve yourselves with them and then the game happens, right? And it's such an amazing event. Obviously you like it when you win, but even if you don't win, if the decision doesn't go your way, you've had something that is absolutely unique and something that is so memorable, no matter if it's your first time or your 100th time, because you've been involved in something that was bigger than you. You've been involved in something that there was a community feel to it. And I loved that. And I really loved it because every time I went to a rugby match, rugby kind of became the backdrop on storytelling, on learning new things, on figuring out new ideas, just by listening and interacting and talking to people. It was such a great community event that really, I think, solidified my desire to do something that entertained people. Right? I saw the way it made me feel, and I saw the way it made people who, some of my buddies were really, really quiet people, right? But you put them in front of a crowd at a rugby match, they were jumping up and down and hooting and hollering. It turned them into this completely different person. I'm like, that's a power that I'd like to harness. I'd like to figure out something that I can do that's going to make people smile, that's going to make people cry, that's going to make people have an emotion that they're choosing to have because they're going to a rugby match or they're going to a film or they're going to a concert. And I was deeply, deeply passionate about the storytelling around those vehicles that we can put forward. So I guess in a way, 10-year-old me looking at 700-year-old me right now, I don't think I'd be that disappointed because I'm still deeply entrenched in storytelling. So instead of using a rugby ball in a stadium in which to tell my story, I use keystrokes and I use keyboards and I use cameras and I use lights and I use technology to help get that passion I had as a youngster to reality today. So it's been a bit of an unusual part to get to where I am today, but I think I've fairly stayed true to my core principle was make people feel something. Do something that makes other people feel something that they want to feel or something that surprises them because they've chosen to go do something that was cool and fun and unique.
Well said, John. So how do you do that today? In what form do you are you still achieving what you originally intended to?
Sure. So when I first sort of became a quote unquote grown up, I don't know what a grown up is. I really don't think I'm a grown up yet. Maybe I'll get there one day. But I decided to go to film school, right? And I started making music videos and commercials in South Africa or southern part of Africa. And if you look at what I do now I lead an AI team and a technology team in the media, entertainment, sports industry, and I look at how those two worlds really join together as a plane as one. I said earlier it's been a winding journey, but it's been a very connected journey. I started off making stories, and then I moved to the technology side of it that helped the technology that was underpinning the ability to go and tell those stories. So I moved into broadcast technology. So how do we get those stories to mass, right? How do we get those out to people? Then I joined into news. And then from news, I joined into more of a product role in technology on how I can still continue that one to many paradigm, create one thing that many people can use. That has been the story of how I've been able to scale my desire to do fun things right now, right? So I've always remained connected to the media entertainment industry. I am through a technology lens right now, but I sit I sit at Google as the head of AI go to market for media entertainment, and it's funny. I was describing to my kids. They say, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, think of it like this. I feel like I'm a diplomat and I sit between two fascinating countries that speak two completely different languages." I'm like, "Well, Dad, what the hell are you talking about? That's weird." I'm like, "Well, I could be sitting in a major film studio and they're telling me a story about their struggles to get a pilot greenlit or to get a certain visual effects made or to get a story under a certain budget or to create audio that would otherwise be prohibited because they had technological challenges to it." So I take those stories and then I go to the other country, which is I sit in front of these brilliant engineers and I tell them this problem. And then they talk back to me in a way which technologically wouldn't make sense to the studio heads because they don't speak in that language. So I listen to the tech, I go back to the studio, and then I translate that into a language in which they could understand. But essentially, it's continuing that story. And what I'm enabling them to do is take that problem, take that struggle that they have, and fix it. The zeros and ones underneath it, they don't care. They have a slew of people who are going to do that for them. A slew of people who are going to understand that. But to get that, I have a problem to I have a solution, it really feels like I'm straddling two different worlds. And those two different worlds are interconnected by me, the diplomat or the translator, being able to take this language and put it in that language, and then vice versa, play it back to them, so everyone can get on that same page. So again, it's a different it's a different application to storytelling, but it's enabling those stories to be told, and it's fun. It's a heck of a lot of fun. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, I mean, like your career is an unusual path. Starting with the aspiring athlete, and then you went into the storytelling, like more into the filmmaking, music, videos, etc. And now you're leading the AI teams. And as you say that you don't find them different, right? You're still connected with the same continuum of and the core objective of that connecting with people, touching them, right? Making them feel. um, how do you feel like your past, even though you're still on the core journey, core goals, but those experiences, how have they shaped you in what you're doing today, in leading the AI, right? You're being a pioneer, you're at the front of the AI revolution right now.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I still have this common thread of everything that I've done lends to itself to the next thing that I'm going to do. And I always bring things from my previous experiences. So all the way from actually being behind the camera, right? To going and understanding the concepts of how lighting can change a mood of a scene and how audio can bring depth to something and how actual writing by that human story is central to everything. Now you take that and a music video, you've got 3 minutes to tell an entire story that is set to music, but you're visualizing it. And the two sometimes are purposefully unconnected, but you have to make it a cohesive unit. So I take that skill into what the example I just gave you in terms of I have music, which was recorded first, and now I want to put a music video to it. Those are two different languages. How do you translate between the two and make it a cohesive unit? It's the same thing as speaking engineer. Do I speak PhD or do I speak CEO? Right? Two different languages, but how do you make them interconnect? I look at myself as that bridge, as that connector. So everything I've done has brought me to today, right? I mean, someone far fancier than me said that. I stole it from them, right? And I believe that's true. And what I'm going to do tomorrow is heavily influenced by what I'm able to do today, or sometimes more importantly, Shadab, what I'm not able to do today. And those are the things that really, really excite me. I've been on this quest. I think it's the Six Sigma sort of thesis, right? I've been on this quest for perfection. You're never ever going to get there. It's the journey of never ever stopping to try and be perfect. That is the real prize in it, right? So I look at AI specifically as my natural journey from tech to data to AI. I look at that as a natural evolution because whereas I love the ability for data and AI to do things that we do today differently, more efficiently, cheaper, better, faster, more type of thing. Love that. That's great. That's amazing. But what I'm more interested in is what can we do with these tools today that we couldn't do yesterday? Or what can't we do today? And I can use these tools to figure out how to make that a reality tomorrow. That's what is really, really special. And again, coming from all the experiences of what I've had to date, and then landing in a place such as Google, such as AI at Google, gives me a landing zone in order to go and stretch and push those boundaries and see what we can do. Don't take no for an answer. Don't take we can't do that for an answer, right? We live in such an age where that answer is always wrong, no matter when you say it, because there's always a way to figure it out. May not be today, may not even be next year, but we're going to get that answer.
Great. So, John, you and I we talked about this a little bit, and the reason I'm very interested in your journey because you have made a little bit unusual journey, but you started somewhere, and ultimately, what you want, you have been able to evolve in this life and your career, right? Now, there are a lot of people who want to do the same thing, and particularly with this AI, I would say things are shaking out in a way that a lot of careers have to be transformed, have to be reset. In fact, that's what people are doing. They're taking time
Yeah.
off. They're evaluating where they are, what do they need to do, and many times they don't know. And I think that's why a lot of people will be interested in knowing the kind of role that, like, the journey that you already talked about, but also where you are today as a AI go-to market leader at Google, and your past experience as well as at Microsoft and IBM. What does that entail? What does that mean? How, like, what when people look at this kind of role, they would like to know what does a day to day look like, so that they can also decide for themselves if this is what they want, and how do they get there.
Yeah, that's a great question. And um, building on what you said, right, because of the pace of innovation in the chosen field that you and I play in, right, data and AI, the day to day is very different day to day, right? Because of the pace of innovation that is happening behind us is pushing how our day is going to react. But at the general core of it, my role is a storyteller on behalf of Google and their capabilities to behalf of their customers on what they can do with those capabilities, right? So I manage a team of sellers. We have technical folks. We have engineering, business development. There's a slew of supporting characters that are far more important than me and they're far more effective than I am. But my role is really putting the best of the people suited to that best situation in play at that particular time. And the team that I've got today, they are the world's finest, right? I mean, they are. I'm so blessed and so lucky to have been blessed with a talented team that I have. And at the heart of it, every single person understands that tomorrow is going to be different because of what they do today, but also because of what we do today, right? The technology that we are responsible of bringing into the world. So if people look at me and go, "Oh, I want to do what he does. I want to do what Shadab does, right? I want to do what Jamie does." They talk about all these wonderful things and all that. You have to have a passion for it. You have to have a passion for not only the technology that you want others to use, you need to use it yourself. You need to intimately understand the capabilities and the limitations of what it is that you're talking about. And the second thing is you have to be a storyteller. You have to have people understand what it is you're saying. And in order for them to understand what you're saying, you have to connect with them, right? So people may understand words. We speak the same language. You may say some things to me, and I've got no idea what you're talking about. 9 times out of 10, it's because we didn't connect on a level that would make me want to understand. So the best and the most bright stars on my team, phenomenal storytellers, right? They are passionate about what they do. They're passionate about what the technology can do for them, and they're phenomenal at telling stories on how it could be just as effective for our customers that we're speaking to, or our prospective customers that we're speaking to. And the beautiful thing about this game is that it is so interconnected with stuff that isn't ours that it's infinitely interesting because we need to integrate with other solutions, right? We need to create solutions that just didn't exist tomorrow. And without that passion and without that ability to talk about what you're doing, it becomes a very difficult task, right? This isn't something you brought up the past, right? I mean, this isn't something that I came out of university and the first one of the first jobs I got was while I was paying bills. I was a data entry clerk, right? And that was very you punch the red button on Tuesday at 3:15 every Tuesday at 3:15, and you just do that, right? Those days are gone. We automate those now, right? We automate that with advances in technology. We use agents. We use it. So all of that, speaking to me back then, I'd be like, what the heck are you talking about? This sounds like science fiction, right? But we're lucky enough, and I have kids who are in their teenage years. They grew up in a world where the internet was always here. They grew up in a world where instant connectivity was always here. Right? My kids, like when we were hungry, shit up, what happened? We'd have to make food, or we'd have to get into a car, or go on our foot, or get on our bikes, go to somewhere to buy either the food or the ingredients to come home and make it. Now kids just go, oh, cool, I'm just going to DoorDash Wendy's. Right? Everything comes to them. They live in a world that, frankly, we created through us being able to build on these technologies and tell stories about, hey, I know you're a fast food restaurant, but wouldn't it be cool if there was an intermediary company that could place an order with you, but they're not going to eat it. In fact, they don't even want it. They're going to then sell that on to somebody else who has a delivery service. They're not going to eat it. They're not going to want it, but they're going to take it to the client who actually wanted it and did pay for it, but didn't want to come to your restaurant to grab it. Even 10 years ago, that was possible. Right? It was like, what are you talking about? That's nuts, right? So the ability to connect those dots and see those dots, if you're very, very good and adept at doing that, you'll be very, very good at what you and I do.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, John. One of the other thing is, as I talk to you about, the jobs, right? The impact of this technology, and this technology is a bit different, right? It is turning out to be, it's far more powerful than anything that we have seen before, and that means that it's far more transformative, right? In all ways. So now, I think the most burning question that people must be asking you, and people ask me, and people expect us to discuss as well, is that what do they do? Like in this, with this AI, what will happen to the jobs? What should the people do to keep up, or rather, not just keep up? I would say, there's one aspect of some people want to know how to survive AI, but also how can they thrive, right, with AI in their career. What do they need to do? What would you advise the people like that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one that we would hear all the time, right? I mean, and look, the headlines are out there as well. AI is going to replace X percentage of jobs, depending on which publication you're reading. Those numbers variance, but the general theme is that AI is going to replace human beings, right? And depending on which side of the coin you're on, there it's either a damning statement or it's a great statement, right? I don't tend to agree with that, right? So I look at it whenever a powerful new tool comes along, right? The first story, and go back in history and fact check it, right? The first story people tell is one of fear, right? Because they don't understand it, and I get it. Look, take the media industry. Take the creative. When Photoshop arrived, remember that Photoshop is a verb now, right? Did you Photoshop that? Right? It's good. When it arrived, illustrators and photo retouchers, they were like, "That's it, game over. We're out of a job." Adobe has just released Armageddon. That didn't happen, right? They weren't replaced; they were upskilled. They had to reskill themselves. They had to retrain, right? When we talk about how editing went from literally cutting celluloid to digital film to like editors are gone, editors are dead. Still have tons of editors, right?
Mm.
It's been around for a very, very long time, especially in my industries, in the sports industry, in the media industry, in the entertainment industry, telco industry. It has been around for a long time. It hasn't been democratized quite like it has been today ever before, right? So if you think about the transformer model, the large language models that sit on the front end of whatever AI processing is happening in the background, that makes it very accessible. It makes it very easy to interact with, and it makes it very quote unquote human, right? Because it speaks to us the way that we speak to it. Make no mistake, it isn't sentient. It doesn't act on its own unless you tell it to act on its own. And the act on its own part is the instructions that you've given it, the guidelines that you've given it. So I don't look at it in the doom and gloom that it's going to replace everybody. I think some jobs will absolutely be affected, right? But those jobs are going to give rise to another area in which we can help reskill. And that's our responsibility. It's on us to reskill and help our workers understand where we need more help now. And it's going to be in different areas. It happened in the farming industry when we went from there was a lot of pesticide. I was actually speaking to someone who owns a corn farm and in Illinois, and they said they don't use they use don't use drivers in the combine harvesters anymore. They do everything via AI, and it's done by satellite imagery. And they use that to do the field. They're going taking the corn out of the fields. They do it for planting, so they can get symmetrical rows of planting, so it's more efficient for them to do the pesticides. Pesticides are done by drones, right? It's dropped up for drones, but they said they've got a 10 to 15% reduction in workforce. And I said, well, that doesn't really make any sense, right? If you just told me you've automated and taken humans out of all these jobs, they said, well, what happens when the corn is plowed? Then it's brought back. It has to be packaged up and it has to be quality checked. Now, all of that is a very human thing. The trucks aren't driving themselves, right? The loaders aren't loading themselves because yes, there are automated vehicles and yes, there are robots that you're using in Amazon warehouses, etc. But they come at a cost today that isn't available for everyone, right? We've democratized access to LLM AI because the cost has come down so much. But what about a factory worker from a humanoid robotic perspective? That's still very, very expensive, right? So I think it's a balance, but it's a long-winded answer, Shadab, but to say that, yes, jobs are impacted, but jobs are impacted when we move to the production line, right? Jobs were impacted when we move to the next thing. So I think we're coming out of that fear-based conversation and we're in a reality-based conversation where we're going, okay, jobs will be impacted. How do we reskill? What can't we do without humans, and how do we do that? I mean, one of the actually my wife, she was making fun of me. We had a problem with one of the toilets, right? So I had to go to Home Depot. I had to fix it to get a new valve to fix it. She goes, AI couldn't do that. She's right. AI wasn't coming to the house and popping his head into the toilet and figuring out that, but popping his hand into the toilet and putting the new valve in there, right? And she's right. So it's all about figuring out where we can rebalance the workforce.
Yeah, great point, actually, John. And I think the way I see this, look, yeah, AI can actually automate certain things. It can make, first of all, the biggest area is it can take away the overheads, right? So which
Yep.
nobody enjoys doing it. Secondly, that yes, I mean, like as you give an example that okay, 10 to 15% headcount reduction, but that's for the same output. Why would you be still sticking with the same output? You would like to actually, if you can continue to increase your output, right? So it doesn't necessarily need into a headcount reduction. You can grow your output and
Yes.
continue to grow the headcount, right? So I think what probably the problem is this, John. What I see is it's really, again, I think the AI gets a blame. I feel very optimistic about AI. I do feel a bit pessimist about people, right? The decision making, right? Which is nothing to do with AI. It's a short term thinking of a, let's say, it could be a corporate greed that might lead to the job reduction, but it doesn't have to be. You can, it is a management decision to decide that okay, let me continue to increase more output, let me enable everybody, let me make it like recently Bernie Sanders talked about this, right? Okay, if AI, one of the benefits should be make it a 4-day work week. If organizations are benefiting from it, right? If you really think that you're you have much more productivity increase, why are you taking the benefits away from the people? So I think it's a perspective. It's a debate about the people's intentions and the greed, etc. It's less about technology. Technology is now a tool for us to use it the way it wanted. So I totally agree with you. I think it's really about the perspective. Okay, now let's say if somebody and this is again another burning kind of question, and John, you being a leader in this space, I think it would be helpful. There are a lot of folks who are going to enter the workforce, people who are still in the college, including our own kids will be right in the college and in that space, but the entry level jobs apparently are reducing, right? What do you suggest them, and forget about the jobs also, but what should those students in the college or aspirants should do to continue to upskill? And this is a bit different from the people who are already in the job.
Yeah, and I think that it's a very good question and something that I'm infinitely passionate about, Shadab, because this is where I get a disconnect, right? Is that we have new learners coming into the workforce with new skills, new way of thinking, right? I mean, we have generation names on purpose: boomers, millennials, Gen X, right? Because they think different. They were brought up differently. They were taught differently, right? So they're very segmented in terms of how they approach things. But we always talk about a job as a job, right? Why doesn't that change? Right. So we talk about this new set of learners coming out with a different way. Again, always connected, always been internet first. Now the generation like my kids, when they leave college, what will college look like in 5 years? Is it going to be the same as today? I guarantee you not. So why are we thinking of it the same way today? So when kids are leaving college this year, next year, they already have a different perspective on making money, right? They're not thinking about taking the paper route. They're not thinking about going and working. They're thinking about what's a side hustle. Side hustle becomes a main hustle real quick, right? Because they're out there. I can create an app. I can create an app and not know a single line of code. I don't know how to do Python, JavaScript. I don't even know what those words mean. You're talking about snakes and coffee. I don't understand. But I created this app and it's cool. Or they want to be influencers. They want to use their name, image, and likeness so they can tell people that, you know what, drink this water. This water is the best water ever, right? That's not it's not an endorsement. I am not sponsored, but if they have enough people that listen and believe them, they get enough advertising dollars into their bank account. All of a sudden, guess what? That is their career, right? So they
Yeah.
think differently about how they monetize themselves and monetize their journey, but we don't. We think, oh, where they're going to get jobs and our job force reduction, and do we need to think about doing a different thing for our kids? Should they be going into a vocational career versus or should they become educators? But are educators getting paid? We're thinking about it incorrectly. Look at the new generation. We figured it out, right? Because when our parents looked at us leaving school, they were like, oh man, The workforce is so different. I feel for my kids these days. It was so much simpler back then. We're having the same conversation about our kids, right? Listen to them. They're the ones who are figuring it out. Watch what they do. See how they react to things, because that's the way the market is turning. And I put a lot of trust in the young population of today, because they are so smart, they are so savvy, because they have access to always on information, good and bad. There are obviously cons to this, right? Don't get me wrong, but they have access to information you and I could only dream of when we were their age or growing up, right? Even when we were in university, right? I was university. I was in the dormitory in my first year at university, and there was a couple of hundred people in there, right? Two computers, two for the entire thing, right? And not everyone was scrambling in there to do it. Everyone was knocking on the door saying, "Hey, Dude, can I play Civilization?" Right? They weren't using it. Now people are studying. They're making flashcards. I don't understand this thing. They just go and they use these tools which are readily available and freely available. Look at how the workforce, the incoming workforce, has adapted to today's environment, and therein lies the answer. So stop trying to give someone a 9 to 5 when they work 24/7, and they may work 5 to 5 today, and tomorrow this is going to take off because they need, I'm not going to do it today. I'm going to go
That
to the beach. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah, that's a brilliant way of putting it. So, in summary, essentially, what you're saying is, look, it's not just how the job is changing or the life is changing. It's the context is changing as well, right? Essentially, and that means that the expectation will change, etc. So it's not an like we have to think outside the box. Today we
Yeah,
have a box. We are thinking within that box. Oh, this and that the fear start, but the box itself is evolving, right? It's not just you inside the box, but the box itself is changing. I think
exactly.
that's very important for people to understand. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. If you think about cause and effect, right?
Yep.
How could you think one is going to change and the other one wasn't? Cause doesn't only change effect. Effect changes the next cause, right? So if you think about that paradigm, why would one axis change and the other not? It's impossible.
True. Absolutely. Okay, so now another area of interest, John. You are leading the media industry. You're doing a lot of work. I read interestingly about the posts that you actually make. You talk about a lot of things. One of the announcement that you had also shared was about the whole remastering of the Wizard of Oz movie, right? And that will be displayed on the dome, right? So there are new ways of old content that you will be experiencing, right? So I think that's what is possible with AI. That's just one of the example. Now within the media industry, um, how do you see what is immediately an impact on the media industry, both in terms of the promise and potential, and also the fear and the losses?
Yeah, and I can't wait for the world to see the Wizard of Oz in the Sphere in Vegas. It is mind blowing, right? And at the center of that, story, right? I mean, why is it the Wizard of Oz? Yes, it was Jim Dolan's favorite movie, right? So and it's his company, so he gets to choose, right? We understand that. But why? Because it's such a loved story. And breathing new life into that, and breathing new life in the way that AI can, and only AI can, is absolutely incredible. I said at the top of the call, right, is I am infinitely interested in the things that can't yet be done or haven't been done. And that's a shining example. How do you take a little movie 4 by 3 and put it into effectively two 16K screens that are also in a dome, which have haptic chairs and wind machines? How do you make that happen? Well, the first answer was you can't, you don't. Awesome. Challenge accepted. Let's go ahead. Now, August 28th, go take a look at it. Go get your tickets and view the movie. It'll change movie going experiences forever. And that's just one small aspect of it, right? So you think about AI in movie industry, it's and I made this prediction in one of my writings, right? I said by 2030, which is only 5 years away, the top 5 movie of the year is going to be made on a budget under $1 million in someone's basement. Not saying all movies will be made that way. I'm saying that entrant will be one of the top 5 movies of the year in terms of box office, in terms of reviews, in terms of repeat watching, in terms of distribution deal, all of the goody stuff that comes with that, right? That's my, and it's written, write it down, put it in the post. I've said it. right? Let's see if that comes true over here, right? One of the things that I really, really love is it's like AI itself. AI is democratizing filmmaking, right? Now, filmmaking is something I'm super passionate about. Now, when I used to make music videos and commercials, we used to typically work on a very shoestring budget, right? And that meant we had to make sacrifices in locations, sacrifices in, you know what? I'm the director of photography, and I'm the gaffer all in one, right? Because we couldn't afford to hire any other people, right? AI takes a lot of those constraints out of the picture because I can use AI to help. Where are my most cost effective locations? What is the weather prediction going to be on those days so I can make sure if it's raining I can't shoot? Don't bring those people to set because you got to pay them, right? Simple moves like that are massively meaningful to smaller to mid to low budget productions, regardless of what the end if it's a movie or a commercial or a music video or whatever it is. Those things in the business of making the business is incredibly democratized and incredibly cost effective. I love that. Again, we get into that, oh my goodness, AI is going to take away all our jobs. And we know the strike happened in SAG-AFTRA because they were concerned, and I appreciate that. And I'm on the side of the human because there's one thing that you cannot ever take away, and there's one thing that AI will never ever replace, and that's the human story. Right? AI can, yes, you can do a prompt and AI can give you a story. Guess what? It's not real. It's not human. And you can feel that the instant you try and put that onto a moving image. You can feel that the instant you try and put that onto an AI generated video. You feel it the instant, right? That human connection is never ever going to go away. And I believe that is going to be a tale as old as time. But I caveat that with, remember, we're thinking in a way that we've been brought up to think in our experiences in life is done. The new generation that is coming in, they don't think of film and AI film. They just think of movies. Whether
Mm.
this one's an AI movie, whether this one was shot on IMAX, or whether this one was shot on 70 millimeter, or whether that one was shot on digital red camera, they don't care. It's entertainment. And it's entertainment the way they want it. So maybe AI is presenting them with little snackables that they're watching on TikTok. Them, it's not an AI movie. It's just that little snackable content with that cute little mouse that I love so much, right? That's AI. But guess what? They go downstairs and they love watching Love Island on Peacock because, oh my gosh, who's going to get kicked off now? It's brilliant. That's not AI. But there's AI that we can use to promote it. There's AI that we can use to see if we can make the next season. There's AI we can use to see if we can reach better demographics, or can we use dubbing and can we put it into different languages? Can we do real-time translation? Those things will AI. But guess what? People are enjoying the medium. So we're really going to stop, and it's going to happen sooner than anyone thinks. We're really going to stop saying, well, that's an AI film and that's a film. I'm going to go, that's a film.
Now, there's another aspect of it. I agree with you, John, that perspective. But here is another perspective on this. I recently watched Mission Impossible, right? And there is certain aspect of it, right? One part is that CGI, computer effect, and yes, I think they will become better and better with the AI. But the other part is being amazed when you watch something, that how did they do it, right? How did they make it? So like you know that these are all sets and the props, and yet you still, there are certain aspects of it, like, oh, Tom Cruise, yeah, he's gonna jump from the sky, that he does his own stunts and things like that, right? So being amazed is part of watching the movie.
Yes.
Now, if you have, let's say, you talk about an example where a person is making under $1 million budget a movie, which will probably be blockbuster, it's gonna be, in my view, do you think that people will still feel amazed at that, because all they know, there is no like the amount of human involvement and ingenuity, etc., is going to be much less. The being amazed, do you think still would be a part of that movie watching?
I do. I very much do, because I think there's always going to be a human behind it, right? As far as I can see, forever and a day, there's always going to be a human, because humans want to hear human stories, and humans are good at telling other human stories, right?
Mm.
And we can smell AI slop a mile away, and it gets derided. Some of it's very funny. cat Olympics, horse jumping off a diamond. Everyone loves those things. It's funny, but it's fleeting, right? Because we know it's fake and it doesn't mean anything, right? It just gives you a giggle and you never watch it again, right? Maybe you send it to your friend or whatever. But movies that you watch time and time again, and the fact that we talk about Mission Impossible, and the fact that we know it's not real, but we're amazed by it. We love it. Yes, Tom Cruise is jumping off a building and breaking his ankle. Yes, he's standing on the wing of an airplane, all that. It's cool, right? But all the other stuff around him isn't really happening, but we're still amazed by that. And we're amazed because it's humans doing stuff that they shouldn't be able to do, right? Or it's technology doing stuff that is completely amazing and oh my gosh, that's weird. I didn't know that touched me in a way. I mean, why do people still equate AI to Terminator and Judgment Day, right? I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, the Terminator is coming, right? No, right? But people are still saying it because it made them feel a certain way, right? James Cameron is a phenomenal storyteller. Right, Tom Cruise is a phenomenal storyteller, along with Kennedy, along with Skydance and everyone. It's brilliant. They've got a great amount of talent there. But I do think fundamentally that AI generated content has a place in today's society, on the big screen, whether that is a part of a multimodal presentation. I use AI for backgrounds. Maybe I film in front of LED screens, and all my screens are changing in real time based on where I am. All done in AI. It can take the mood of what I'm saying and change a background in real time. Those are cool little tricks that were done in post production. Cost a lot of money, cost a lot of time and effort. You can do those all in real time now, right? People don't badmouth it, don't think about it. But if we think about what isn't possible today, those big explosions defy logic, defy gravity, right? You can do all those things with AI, and those are meaningful and cool. Another super interesting application in the film world for AI is, where do we use AI for safety? Think about actors. Actors are human. Actors have emotions. Their job is an actor. They go and they prepare. And what happens if there's a scene where there's a lot of bodily harm? What if you have that bodily harm that's self-inflicted, and you get into character and it gets you into a headspace that can really present itself as a very dangerous situation mentally for that actor, right? If they had to do some self-harm or they had to do harm to others and it really affected them as a human being. Don't have them do that. Don't put them in that space, because that's dangerous. We have a responsibility for humans to take care of other humans. Don't willingly put them in front of a moving car, for goodness sakes, right? What happens if you can use AI to generate that specific moment in that specific scene that is believable enough that you protect the actor and the talent? You don't put any long-term harm in their way, but you don't put the integrity of the production in jeopardy. You can use AI for that. That's a phenomenal use case for that, right? So I think there's, again, as it's a burgeoning industry, it's moving super quick, right? And there's a lot of commercialized AI content out there. But if you think of the way that big blockbusters have been doing it for us, I mean, look at Star Wars, right? I mean, if there was a beautiful example, right? The first Star Wars movie ever had 15 stop animation experts working on it, right? The last Star Wars movie that just came out had over 1,500 special effects artists working on it, right? To do fundamentally the same thing. Right? It's just the way technology exploded. And what are those CGI artists doing? They're using artificial intelligence to fill in explosions and backgrounds and build gravity-defying spaceships and things. They're doing the same thing that they were doing earlier. Instead of drawing it now, they're drawing it on computers and they're getting it to market quicker. It looks more realistic. It looks bigger. It looks smashy. It looks fantastic, right? That's AI, again, building on what we've done. But the generation that's really going to make a difference is doing stuff with it that we didn't know was possible. Right? We can't sit here and think we know everything, and we have to be the guardians of the galaxy over here, the guardians of the way things are done. Forget it. You got to let it go, because the stuff that will come later is built on the technology that we've created. Is going to be so fantastic. We're going to sit there and go, "Wow, how did you do that?" And that's what we do today when you watch Mission Impossible.
True. I think we can rightfully say, prepare to be amazed, right, at the future. Media, which is one of your passion industry, the other passion that you have is sports really, and media and sports are kind of like, I would say, converging, right, in the aspects that media is becoming like sports and sports is becoming like media, I would say, right? Because sports is becoming like more like celebrity status, the fan following, and just like and a lot of I would say um, ownership driven rights and all those things. And on the other hand, media is becoming more like sports, very competitive, fast paced and all those things, right? So both are actually amazing industries, and you have worked in both. um, One of the thing I would say, the sports industry, if you see, I think athletes are safe because nobody wants to see robots really, playing football or tennis or anything, and then nobody's going to enjoy that. On the other hand, the actors and the writers and others, they are feeling threatened, right? There has been strikes going on recently. Also, there was some, for example, the content companies, like they have been suing the model builders as well, OpenAI, Anthropic, I believe Meta also, in terms of the training, how they're training. How do you see, as a creative person, right, in the media industry, what should they do, or what can they do to protect their content? And what do you see? Like, I'm asking a little bit broader question in terms of what do you think about this content ownership and the AI being trained, and this is a gray area, to be honest, right? Models are
Right.
not forthcoming about how they're training, where they're training, things like that.
Yeah, so I think that, so there's a couple of things in there, right? So I agree that sports sports is where I started. It's my passion, always been my passion, and I have no desire to see a robot basketball team or a robot rugby team to go out there and do what it is. Right? It won't even be mildly entertaining. I think that rings true because the only sort of robot TV shows where anyone watched the battle bots where robots actually just kill each other, right? Which is like, okay, great. That's zero guilt if one of them sort of goes through
Things that
kind of.
we don't want humans to do. Yes.
Exactly right. Don't put them in harm's way. But I do agree that sports is having its movie moment, right? Or sports is having its Hollywood moment. It's become sports is such a passionate thing. If you think about it, right? You've got a season, and within that season, you've just got a couple of hours a day or a couple of hours a week if they play multiple games like basketball or baseball, right? But if you've got NFL, for example, right, you've got such a small little window, but it's a year-round thing in terms of a business, right? It's a year-round thing in terms of people are super passionate. Everyone walks around with their Jets jerseys. I'm a Jets fan. You can make fun of me later, right? But it's and I love them dearly. I really do. I'm a diehard. But if you think about the ability for those players to continue to put on a spectacle that people are thrilled about, that people are amazed by, that people have their Tom Cruise moment, right? Um, and that's thanks to technology. And in lately, it's a thanks to AI technology, right? And the way that they can use AI to do deep analytics on data around sports. I mean, I think sports is such a wonderful breeding ground for innovation in data and AI because it is 100% completely data driven. It is essentially when you look at players running around like the EPL deal that Microsoft just did, right? I don't see players running around the field. I see zeros and ones, right? Because they're just generating so much data. And you're like, oh my gosh, why did he do that pass? Or why did he choose to head of that ball instead of chesting it, bringing it down and hitting it with his dominant foot so he could basically get a better shot at goal, right? Why did that happen? Because number one, he's a human, he's an athlete, he's been trained, but he lives in the moment. You cannot replicate that. You just can't, right? Because you don't
Mm.
have that human. A robot doing that, they will give a probability score, and they will do that next best action based upon how good a human programmed their model. Right? A human does all of that in real time at lightning speed without even thinking because you've been trained, he's going to head at that ball. Right? You ask him why after the match, why did you give that ball a header instead of chesting it, putting it to your dominant foot, and putting it in the back of the net? 9 times out of 10, he'll give you an answer that is complete bullshit. The answer is because they are trained and they don't think, they just act on instinct. And that instinct was trained into them through hours and hours and hours of dedication to their craft, through absolute hours of combing through data, watching tape, listening to tape, listening to audio, right? Conditioning themselves to make that decision without even thinking. That's the difference. You don't get that in a robot unless you code that into a robot. And to code that into a robot, that means you have to be able to think like Messi. Guess how many people think like Messi? One, Messi. And he isn't coding any models, right?
Mm.
So look, it's an extreme example. So I firmly believe that if you look at how people have a thirst to be entertained, there aren't enough movies, TV shows, soap operas, telenovelas to satiate everyone's need. That's why Netflix rose out of the ground like a phoenix from nowhere, right? From no one watches DVDs anymore. Right, we'll just stream it. Now we'll create our own content, right? And they've got show after show. Everyone has a streaming platform now because people just want to ferociously consume all this data. Okay, well, what else can we consume? Sports, right? We want to consume all the sports, right? All right, baseball wants to reduce the amount of games per year. Are you crazy? People want more games per year, right? So they're going to watch baseball. And when they're not playing baseball, they're going to watch NFL. They're going to watch NHL. They're going to watch English Premier League because they hear that's cool. Oh, the Olympics coming up. Got to watch the Olympics, right? And everyone's talking about curling and pickleball. So I guess I got to have to watch curling and pickleball. It's all about people's ferocious appetite for consuming entertainment. Entertain me, right? No one wants to
Mm.
sit back at 8 o'clock and go, all right, cool, TV show, let's watch it. No, people want to sit down and go, I need to watch this, I want to watch that, I want to watch this, and I want to watch it at the same time. So I put up split screen, I got three things going on, I got my phone, I got my tablet, because now I want to actually dive into this game, but I don't want to miss Squid Games because I heard the second season was pretty cool. So let me put that up there. It's absolute information overload, but that's today's generation. And we have to play to that generation because that generation is creating tomorrow's generation, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So it's going to get more and more and more. So I think sports and entertainment are just entertainment at this point. Sports is
Fascinating.
graduated in, or entertainment's graduated out, whatever it is. I just think it's a singular entity at this point now. The medium is different. How do most people watch their sports? It's on a screen because there's a finite number of seats in the stadium. Doesn't matter how big the stadium is, there's only a certain number of seats.
Mm.
And there's millions of people who want to watch it. Screens, right? What are screens traditionally the home of? Entertainment, right? So it's become a single medium in my book, right? And so I firmly believe they both help each other, right? I firmly believe that they both push each other's boundaries. Because if you look at the production quality on a sports broadcast, unbelievable.
Mm.
Off this chart, right? We have 4K cameras zooming around, right? We have AI cameras out there that follow a specific player if I want that specific player, right? It's that one-to-one sports relationship with their fans that they have, which is unbelievable and phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
And the production quality is it's literally Hollywood, right? It's absolutely brilliant. And when we talk about the second part of your question about robots and humans and safety and those type of things, I'm going to go back to something I said earlier, Shadab, right? Is that humans always want to interact with humans, right? Humans feel safe with humans, right? I'm not talking about the extreme cases where obviously humans have the innate and immense capability for bad, but humans are attracted to humans. And the content that they want to consume, whether that's sports, whether that's a movie, whether that's something that is made for television, or whether it's audio, podcasts, whatever it may be, it's humans telling human stories that are being consumed by humans. That you cannot change, right? So
Mm.
when you think about these models that are creating content, and people say, well, it sounds an awful lot like something that is mine. It's my IP, it's my protected asset. And you're making content that seems a lot like my content. Well, that may be, but there are only a limited amount of stories out there. There are
Mm.
only a limited amount of examples out there, right? And I can give you examples of books that have borrowed from books and movies that have borrowed from movies that people have openly written about and written articles about, and they've gone, well, imitation is the best form of flattery. But when we bring an AI model into the middle of it, then it's lawsuits, and then it's like, oh my gosh, it's theft, it's stealing, it's this. I'm not going to get into the logistics of whether that's true or not. I have my feelings. I'm not going to let them know because I think everyone should be entitled to their feelings. But I think the reaction is visceral, because it's new. Again, when I say when a story is first told, it comes from a place of fear when it's change. When a story is first told about something that's familiar, it comes from a place of warmth. We're not in familiar yet. So it comes from a place of fear, right? Libraries haven't shut down. Cinemas
Yeah.
haven't shut down, right? We're still here. We're still producing content for it. So I agree there is an IP responsibility that every model provider has, and some providers indemnify their customers on output, right? Others don't. The open source community has free reign, and they always have had free reign to do what they want with their tools and that. But I think if you look at ethical AI practices and you look at the practice of using providers that back their own technology in terms of I will protect the output of this because I prevent IP in, therefore prevent IP leakage out, those are the providers that will prevail, right? Those are the providers that professional creators will go to because they know they're doing it in an ethically sound and safe way of deploying AI that isn't taking food off anybody else's table. And that's ultimately a human decision on which technology to use. So I don't know, maybe we rename this podcast the human episode, right? But it keeps going back to the choices humans make regardless of the technology that they use, produce a human inferred or influenced outcome. But it always starts with a human telling that story or initiating or prompting that story first.
Yeah, fascinating and well put, John. The safety and other things are very important as well. But one of the thing is, it's a crazy race, right? It's cutthroat, it's brutal, it's a fast-paced action movie, right? In the AI, we haven't seen anything like this in what has happened in the last 2 or 3 years. Um, does that worry you that because of this intense competition and really matter of survival for a lot of companies, right? Do you worry that the safety and other aspects will be put to the on the back burner, and they won't be given the due diligence and attention that they should be? Do you worry about AI becoming unsafe, or do you believe that no, we are on the right track so far?
Um, it's a great question, Shadab. I think the real answer to that question is, do I feel that AI has the ability to be used for nefarious purposes? I think we've seen every piece of technology ever created used for nefarious purposes, right? We've seen vehicles that are transportation devices turned into weapons, right? We've seen newspapers. The printing press was one of the most important inventions of the entire planet ever. Words were turned into weapons, right? So the answer to that has to be yes. If someone says no, I think they're kidding themselves or they're just trying to be disingenuous, right?
Mm.
I think the tools in which we put in front of people, we have to be, number one, ethical in the way in which we build our tools. So when they're used responsibly, and we have to promote responsibility, and we have to teach and enable responsibility. But we also have to, it's a razor thin curve here, right? We also have to be able to say, here's technology, go create, right? Because if I give you a tool and say you can only do these three things with it, you'll do those three things once and go, nah, I don't want to do that. I want to go do something else. Or you'll figure a way to break those safeguards and go do four things with it or five things with it, right? A lot of that can be pursued as nefarious activity, right? But you can also think of it, excuse me, there's a bit of a dog in the background, but you can also think of it as a way in which humans are pushing up against the boundaries of what's possible because they want to do more with it, right? They want it to be able to go 11, not 10, right? They want to be able to do 16 things with it versus 15 things with it. So I think the onus is on us as technology providers to provide the safest technology possible for people to do what they want to do with it. We shouldn't have to tell them what to do with it. They need to tell us what they're doing with it so we can make it better, or tell us what they can't do with it so we can fix those things so they can go do that. Is it ever going to be used for bad stuff? Yeah. right? Just like words, just like vehicles, just like any other things, right?
Anything could be done. That's true. That's true. 100% I agree with you. John, you're also an author, right? You have written a book, and I would highly recommend everybody who's listening to actually to read that book. I'm going to drop a link in the show notes as well. Um, and that books talk about the impact of technology in the sports, and you have talked about how this new, like, professional fan experience emerging, right? Tell us a little bit about that book, and what have you talked about in that book, and what is this professional fan that is emerging?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, yes, a little bit of a pinch me moment dream came true. I am a published author. I wrote a book called "Sports and Technology Have the Power to Change the World." I unashamedly stole a line from the incredibly great Nelson Mandela, who was the first was at the first laureate Sports for Good event, and he got up on stage and he said the immortal words that sports have the power to change the world. And I stole that and I added technology in there because I believe that technology and sports, as we've discussed, are coming into one. And I write in the book there, I use each chapter as a different sporting event and a different technology that has evolved from sports and gone into mainstream, like wearables, for example, right? Like deep data analytics came from sports. And if you think about production techniques on live action, a lot of that came from sports, for example. And then if you think about how we do things with a eco-friendly view, right? You can look at the Olympics that were in Shanghai, in Beijing, and how they used green technology as the underpinning on to make the Olympic Village sort of carbon zero and harmful neutral for the environment. Those things all came on the back of sports, right? I mean, but that's wearable technology. It's green power. It's production techniques, but we're still talking about sports. So that's where I talk about the interlace of these things together, which is incredible. And nothing's more important than the fan, because without any fan, there isn't sports, right? Because if there's no fan, there's no monetization. If there's no monetization, you can't pay people to play sports. So I really term the fan as being a professional fan these days because if you think about it, again, when I was a fan watching rugby, you knew about your favorite players because you read about your favorite players and you memorized how many tries they did in rugby, which is how you score in rugby. You remember how many tackles that they made, and you remember all these things because you were passionate about them. You didn't know it for everybody. You just couldn't know it for everybody, right? Because there's so many players. But you keep reading on yours. But if you think about today, that's the old story. That's the way it was. Right? The new story is the professional fan, right? And I've seen this, right? They come to games armed with analytical tools. And what are the analytical tools that they have? Phones, right? And on these
Mm.
phones, they have apps. And they have analytical dashboards, right? And they're not just debating if a player is good or bad. They're debating why a player is good or bad. How long was the walk up? Right? Oh, look, it usually takes 17 seconds to go from the batter's box, from on deck circle to the batter's box. He was 24 seconds. Why is that 20? And they're furiously putting things in. I wonder if someone was playing a game over there and I looked at him, oh, he's furiously doing these. The thumbs are going at 600 miles an hour, right? It was crazy. And I asked him what he's doing. He's like, if that guy's walking there, that means something's wrong with him. He's either laboring a leg injury, or he's tired, or there's something happening in the outfield. They're going to make a switch, or there's a pitcher switch coming because he's walking slow, so it's giving them time to warm up more. And they know all this, and they have, but on everybody. I said, "Oh, is this for the game down here?" It's like, "Oh no, this is for the game that's happening in Oakland." I'm like, we're at Yankee Stadium. Why are you watching another game over there? It's like, "Oh no, it's for my fantasy sports team." Like, okay, fantasy sports team has become a deep data rich analytical application where it's not like I used to speak fantasy sports. You put your best players that you love on there. Doesn't matter if they're really good or not. You put the ones that you love. Now these people trade better than the top sport agent in the world, right? Because they're trading players in and out based upon a single percentage point. It's like Moneyball has hit the casual professional fan, and they're doing on-base percentages better than general managers doing on-base percentages of these players, right? It's
Mm.
absolutely fascinating to watch. And if you think about people used to use it, people say, oh, you're an armchair quarterback because you're telling people post fact what they should have done. I'm sitting watching football games and I'm sitting watching soccer and football, and they're screaming at the player on what to do before they do it. And the players that do what these fans are screaming typically get the result that they want. And the players that don't, and obviously they can't hear them, right? But the players don't, they don't get the result that they want. And you look at these
Mm.
players, guess what this guy does? Right? He's a sales guy during the day. This one over here, he owns a plumbing business. But they all are so in tune with this force because they have data at their fingertips. So if you look at accessibility of data and AI, it's through the advancements made in technology, the advancements made in how we consume our technology, and the advancements made in how we get the technology onto those devices. That has made us all, if we're super
Mm.
passionate about sports, professional fans. We don't just sit back and watch anymore. We want to be in the action. We want to know what's in the action. We do micro betting, right? We monetize our own enjoyment on games through legalized sports betting. We are fantasy sports aficionados. And frankly, we just love to be right. We love it when the coaches are wrong and we are right. And we can say, told you so, because it makes us feel better.
True. We have gamified the sports, I would say, right? So,
Exactly right.
um, and I think this is fascinating. What the way you have given those examples, etc. That the fans are so well informed and deeply emotionally invested nowadays in the sport. So I love that term, actually, professional fan. It is a full time job for a lot of people. There are so many, I would say, celebrity fans who are they have their own distinct style. They carry their own props, and they you can spot them at the sporting event, and people can recognize them. Yeah, sport has never been this kind of deeply invested, emotionally industry. That's amazing. I agree totally, and I think this is a great time to be in the sports. This is a great time to invest in the sport, both as an athlete, as well as spectator, as well even as a career choice, right? For people to support the support industry, because AI is definitely truly transforming the sports industry totally. John, it has been an amazing, privilege to have you on this. And anything else that you would say that I probably missed asking, and you would say that don't forget about this?
I think the privilege has been all mine. I mean, I'm very, very humbled and honored that you would spend some time with me today. So thank you very much. I truly appreciate the invitation. This has been a ton of fun. I think the one thing, and it's more of a repeat. I don't think you missed anything, right? It's more of a repeat of the one thing is don't ever forget that just because we're technology purveyors, right? Shadab and myself are we work in technology, we understand technology, we love technology, but we do technology for humans. And the technology that we represent is made by humans, right? Yes, it's influenced by other technologies. And yes, we can talk about how we can use AI to build AI and all that, but it doesn't start until a human creates something, right? So when I think about AI and I think about the trajectory that we're on, I'm super, super excited about what is going to happen based upon how we take what is possible today and change it, how we take what's possible today and add to that, right? Because I think the us is never going to be out of the equation, right? I think we're going to be able to get to a place, and I don't know if it's your Bernie Sanders four-day work week, but that does sound pretty cool sometimes, right? But I think we're going to get to a place where we're going to elevate ourselves into doing things that we want to be able to do. Now, that sounds like a trite statement because sometimes some things we can't elevate ourselves out of because you have to go do that thing and it's not value to you. But in order for us to be able to get to stage B, you have to do thing A, right? The more that we can automate those things that add no value to us and get busy with the things that do add value to us, either emotionally or professionally or monetarily, that's where I think the AI technology is really going to come into its prime, and it isn't going to be something that you necessarily buy. It's going to be a platform and a framework that you purchase access to, and you create your own stage A automation so you can focus on stage B and above if that's what you want to do. I think we're going to see side hustles be hustles thanks to AI and the technology advances that we've had. But I really think that AI is not democratizing technology for everyone. I think that AI is democratizing the ability to define your own path forward from a career, from a monetization, from a what do you want to do perspective, like no other technology has ever done before.
True. And I really like the way you put it that, this is, we basically, it's a humans, right? We are, I just want to remind that, yes, we are on the side of humans. We are doing this podcast, in fact, only for humans, not for the bots. So, just remember that we are on the side of humans and we think technology, from a human's perspective. It's an amazing conversation, John. Thank you so much for the time. And, you are a person who has worked across so many different industries. You have so many lived experiences that, to be honest, we deserve to do a 5 hour episode, but maybe today is not the time. We will continue to talk.
I look forward to it. And again, thank you so much for having me on. I love the content that yourself and Jamie are putting out there. It's super interesting. I never missed an episode yet. Keep going. Maybe I won't watch this one because it's pretty weird watching yourself, but keep going with it. I love what you're doing. And again, thank you so much for having me on as a guest.